Good evening. I'll even turn my microphone on so people can hear me. Good evening, everybody. It is October 23rd. This is the school board meeting. I'd like to call us to order. Jenny, will you call the roll?
Mr. Murray.
Here.
Mrs. O'Connor.
Here.
Mr. Parnell.
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer.
Here.
And Mr. Dibble.
Here. Thank you. Will you rise and join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Linda.
Second.
Thank you, Julie. Jenny, will you call the roll?
Mrs. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Mr. Parnell.
Yes.
Mr. Dibble.
Yes. I have no comments tonight. Matt, do you have anything to share with us?
Actually, I'm going to defer my comments to Mr. Keith Coney, who's our Executive Director of Curriculum, who's going to talk to us about our Lakota Learning Days that we've been doing this year in the district.
I'll grab my notes real quick and grab the folder. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Board of Education, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to kind of present some of the work that we've been doing here. We've had a lot of positive reaction from our staff at the beginning of the school year, and I believe you may have heard about it at some of the community conversations, and we're honored to be able to talk with you tonight about some of the enthusiasm that the teaching staff has permanently here. Throughout the presentation, I'll be sharing some of their thoughts and ideas through Twitter. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the fact that we are a presence on Twitter now, but there's no better way to hear and see the things that are going on than by the staff members who are out there sharing all of that. Also, I'm the person who's up here speaking, but Mr. Wesley, can you help me here? Thank you. Of course. There we go. So I'm privileged to be able to speak in front of you, but this work does not go on without the entirety of what we're calling the Lakota Learning Team: curriculum, technology, special services, our coaches, digital learning specialists. We had an enormous amount of work that went on behind the scenes, and I definitely want to make sure that I recognize all the people who put in hours and hours of work to get there. And so as we came into this school year, this is my first year in the district, and joining this team, it was there was a lot of work to be done, and there were 3 professional development days in the first 3 months of school to be able to organize all this work together. And so our mission was to take some of the information that you've been given previously. And so there was a report that was generated in the spring of 2016 about professional development in the district with some questions, some concerns, some ideas that were raised at the time. There were 4 main ideas and recommendations that were made then. Those were around differentiation, around personalized design of professional development, around the mastery of learning that goes on, and about collaboration and time to apply what they've learned throughout the course of the day. And so each of those we built into this process. I'm guessing we're having some technical, there we go, perfect, thank you. And so that was the feedback that we gotten from the PD focus groups, and so we were able to build that right into the plan, and those were kind of the benchmarks of the professional development that we had this year. All the research that we have about professional learning motivation tells us that it's got to be all based on autonomy and mastery and purpose. We spent a lot of time talking with teachers about what their why is and why they do what they do every day. We wanted to foster autonomy and ignite passion within the teachers. Yes?
I hate to do this, but can you tell everybody what differentiation, personalized design, deeper mastery, follow through, collaboration, peer-to-peer learning really is to a teacher?
Absolutely, if you have time. I mean, that would
short.
Sure. So the feedback we got from teachers was that we feel like it's a one-size-fits-all model, and that everybody went to the same session or learned the same things, and it didn't necessarily apply to everybody. So differentiating that learning for every single teacher, as difficult as that is really important to do. make sure it's personalized so they can choose some of their own paths through that. You have to have multiple opportunities for teachers to choose different sessions along the way. Building towards mastery, they felt like it was sort of a one-stop shop. You come in, get your learning, you go off and, teaching's a hard job, and you jump right back into the classroom and do what you're supposed to do. And they felt like they needed some ongoing, time after time, embedded application of that, so we could build in some time for them to be able to not only learn it, but then apply it to what they're doing in the classroom. So those are kind of the hallmarks that we're looking for through that process. Great question.
And Keith, the reason for that would be the same as what we do with our students, so that teachers are able to fill in gaps in knowledge or where they feel they need some extra support or extra expansion on their knowledge,
Absolutely.
Just like we do with students.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We talk about being learner-centered, whether your learner is 14 years old or 34 years old. We want the learning to be targeted to their needs, differentiated to where they come in, and then built towards where they need to go.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. We also talked about sort of rebranding these days from just PD days, which can get a little tired sometimes. We wanted to brand them as Lakota Learning Days, so that all of us are learning, from administrators to teachers to staff members all the way across the board. It was an opportunity to kind of begin the year building some enthusiasm around the goals that we've got. And so what we did was we took that, we designed our first day on September 1st, and a lot of the work was done around George Kouros's book, The Innovators Mindset. We've had numerous faculties across the district who have done book studies on this. He's a well-known, it's probably the hottest book in education right now. And what we did was we took each of the 8 characteristics of the Innovators Mindset on the right side and built those into our professional development over the first couple of sessions. The first one, we had a hashtag that was built on that so that we could share all the stories we had. We Are Innovators was the first hashtag that we used. We also modeled it after the Summer Learning Series. There was a lot of choice, a lot of voice that was built in there. We also had an outstanding, nationally known keynote speaker who was able to fire up our troops and set the tone for the day. Mr. Miller did an outstanding job of doing that.
You're turning as red as your hair.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That's what you get when you put me up here. And so we broke up the day. We had morning sessions that were learning sessions. So we had about 25 or 30 in each building across East and West. And then in the afternoon, we had facilitated collaboration sessions. So we had digital learning specialists and coaches and teachers on special assignment, and a few teachers who had volunteered in the past to come out and present. And then we broke it up with some large group activities, and we got a lot of really good positive feedback. It was still pretty district directed, and we were running a lot of the sessions were there. But as you can see, Todd, if we move forward, we got a lot of positive feedback. Those were the sessions. Those pictures could have been taken in every single classroom as we walked through both high schools, of teachers just going through. The other great thing of this is being able to have teachers shouting out to other teachers saying, Liz Goski, man, I wish I could be a student in your class. How reaffirming that is, that teacher to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of opportunities for collaboration about innovation in the classroom. Teachers getting time to be able to, as we hear, I think you hear that several times again and again, having the time to be able to collaborate with each other. Across departments either, for music teachers to be able to sit down and build out a Canvas course, online learning platform for their class with a coach who's right next to them. A lot of work hands-on, because we can teach them about a learning management system, but for them to be able to turn around and build a course out, that takes some time. We actually, you notice on this one, we had teachers sitting on the floor. We ran out of seats in this classroom because they were so excited to learn this from their colleagues. We also had teachers who did things on growth mindset, and I'm sure you've heard of E plus R equals O. If you don't know that, Mr. Goldman can give you a refresher of that. It's good stuff. Teachers learning about developing the culture in their classrooms also. And we had some fun also. So we talked about creativity, and when they came back from lunch, we had each teacher design their own cookie and share it out on social media. They got a kick out of that. There were hundreds of cookies that some were good, some were interesting, we'll say that. But it was fun. They enjoyed that. You have to build some of that enthusiasm as you go through that, which led us into our second day. So we had a quick turnaround, about a 5-week turnaround from September to October. We wanted to move from engagement to empowerment. We also realized that from the beginning, the feedback we got was more voice, more choice, more collaboration time. And we said, if we're going to facilitate this, we need to spread out our arms and bring as many people in as possible. We put a call for proposals out to the entire district. and had a pretty lengthy explanation of what they were going to present, offer to present to their colleagues. We had 75 sessions with over 100 presenters. People collaborated together. 100 people stepped forward and said, yeah, I'm willing to jump in and take a risk and present something I'm doing in the classroom. I don't think it's fantastic, but other people have told me so, and present those to their staff members. So we had 75 sessions over 2 campuses. We also said, you want time to collaborate, tell us what you want time to collaborate on and who you want to do that with. 170 groups of teachers came forward and said, here's what I want. I want it across departments. I want it vertically so that we know what we're transitioning our sophomores to juniors or 4th grade to 5th grade. I want it horizontally across 3 different schools who all teach math, but we're on different pages all the time. Can we get together and find that time? Don't typically have that during the course of the school year. They presented that plan, presented it to us. We said run with that. We found space and allowed that to happen. It was a really neat day. Theme for the day was We Are Networked, trying to build that idea of being not only within Lakota, but regionally and across the state. We tapped into another great resource in Matt for our keynote for the second day, because we are working at being so networked out there with the League of Innovative Schools announcement coming out. We thought that was a really great opportunity there. And so, again, some of the feedback we've gotten, again, what kind of places have 177 collaboration teams and 75 teachers presenting on PD? The fact that the teachers are getting shout outs from other people. We love talking about open educational resources and spending time to find valuable resources. Again, teachers being able to have crowds of fellow colleagues come in their classrooms and learn what's going on. Outstanding stuff. This was one of the sessions that had over 40 people every session coming in there. Obviously, Mrs. Davis's comments, just wow, just an awesome, awesome day of learning. What I will say is that in order for us to really understand the impact this has, I wanted to grab a couple of teachers to be able to talk about it. A couple quick little comments. I think if you want to back up just one, there's one before this, so I'll make sure we honor her also. There we go, thanks. You just did. There we go. On the wall. Up.
For our children. Hi, I'm Laura Brown. I teach 5th grade at Independence. This year, the Lakota Learning Days are fabulous. They give us choice in the morning that we can meet our individual needs, and the collaboration time in the afternoon is awesome to meet as a team and work on what we need to do things for our children.
Hey, I'm Kelly Law from Union Elementary, and I just got finished with the best session of the day. It was led by Caitlin Huxell and Lindsay Conklin, and it was all about blended learning. Something I've been really intimidated to try before, but they just showed some really practical ways that I could use it in my classroom, and I think it's going to address some of the things that are causing me anxiety and stressing me out in my classroom right now. I think it's going to be maybe a potential fix for those, so I'm super excited to try it.
Hi, my name is Maureen Williamson. I teach 5th grade Math and Social Studies at Endeavor Elementary. I've been in Lakota for 10 years, and I gotta say that the positive collaboration that's happening right now in our district is absolutely fabulous. I'm really enjoying the PD days and all of the sessions that are offered this year by all of our amazing colleagues. I just attended the blended learning, which I'm so excited to incorporate into my math classroom and my math workshop this year. I'm getting some digital work time, and then this afternoon I get to also collaborate with my peers. I get to go to a culturally responsive session since I have so many ELL learners in my classroom this year, and I'm just really proud of all the work that Lakota is doing.
Of course, they say it better than we could. The other piece of this is we wanted to build some enthusiasm, and so before or at the end of Matt's keynote, we want to kind of get some people excited about the day. And if Todd, you want to play that, this is just a sample of, well, this was us getting fired up. We are Lakota, and we are networks. And that was at 8:30 on Monday morning. So if we get teachers that fired up at 8:30 on Monday morning, we can do a lot of amazing things with them. And so the path moving forward, we have a upcoming Lakota Learning Day on November 7th. The idea is to then hand this over to the buildings, let them direct this, bring teachers in on board. We're already getting requests for teachers to present those sessions again to their colleagues within their buildings, and more time with that. And as we move forward, it's ongoing, individualized, as we said, differentiated professional learning tied to district goals. And that's the other thing I want to make sure of. This is not fluff. This is not teachers kind of going off on their own and presenting whatever they believe in. This is really tightly designed, tier 1 core content instruction in the classroom that teachers are passionate about and want to share out there. There were all vetted sessions. We made sure that they were really tied to what we're looking for, and the teachers have the passion for it. We also build in, when it comes to training, what we need everybody to be doing. We work closely with the technology department and provide synchronous and asynchronous training opportunities, cross-training, collaboration, going from pockets of excellence to a culture of passionate colleagues sharing their expertise and growing across the district. And beyond that, we want to move beyond just the walls of Lakota to leave innovative schools and future-ready schools and becoming seen regionally and nationally as the place for outstanding student and professional learning. So with that, happy to answer any questions you might have, but thank you again for the opportunity.
Any questions? Anyone?
There's so much enthusiasm in the buildings. I was stopped in the building I was in today, and there was a parent there who is also a teacher in our district who said she happens to live in Indian Hill, and she said they may be rated as one of the top districts in the country. She said, but I would put our district up against their district any day. She said the inputs may be different of the students you're teaching, and that helps the ratings significantly. She said, but when I see what we're doing with our students day in and day out in the data meetings, and the way we look at each student and individualize the instruction, she said, I would much rather have my kids right now be here than even some of these districts that we look at and see those report cards and think, wow. But she said, I just am so impressed with what I see here over what I'm seeing my kids achieving, even in those districts that sometimes have those great reputations. So it's certainly nice to be caught and have those conversations with people. So, and she was very enthusiastic about what had just happened, and so just wanted to pass that along.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith, for this presentation, but for you and your team for building this out. Really impressive. Really good for our kids and for our staff.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Jenny, I'm expecting a nice 20-minute presentation, PowerPoint slides.
Well, I'm going to hold my comments until my section of the agenda. I don't want to hold up the students, and I can't follow Mr. Coney after that. I need a little break there.
Perfect. Okay, well, we'll move on to the student spotlight then.
Fortunately, I just get to hand it over to students, and I don't know if I was referring. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Miller, and Mrs. Logan. This evening, I am pleased to introduce these two young men who excelled in the Catapult Design event at the Technology Students Association International Competition this summer. Under the guidance of their Liberty Junior School teacher, Mr. Brian Ruby, Andrew Lewis, and Dylan Lacey, now freshmen at Lakota East were among the 250,000 middle school students competing for a spot at the finals in Orlando. This also included students from Japan, Germany, and Turkey. 8,000 students qualified to compete in one of 30 events during the finals. Andrew and Dylan were in second place going into the final round of the Catapult Design event. In addition to designing and demonstrating their catapult, each group also submitted a portfolio documenting their process. Andrew and Dylan's portfolio was so detailed that it gave them the edge and catapulted them to first place. Thank you to Mr. Burnside and Mr. Ruby for joining us this evening. I'd also like to welcome Andrew and Dylan's family and thank Mrs. Lewis for sharing the video of the competition with us. We'll be taking that to Catapult Conference in November. It is my pleasure to introduce Andrew Lewis and Dylan Lacey so that they may tell you more about their experience.
Well, I'm Andrew, Dylan. So this kind of started out as like a class project, Mr. Ruby's class for automation robotics. Then it took us about 6 months to build. A lot of it class time, but most of it was like after school working on it and stuff. So we had best in the class. And then we moved up to state. We won state, and then nationals. We won nationals. We improved it over time, and as we said before, the portfolio pretty much won us the competition. So.
Yeah, so as we said, we started out in class, and I guess it was an actual main build. It took us about 2 to 3 weeks in class, and then over the course of the 6 months, we made more and better designs. And it started out like with a bungee cord instead of a spring, and the latch actually went there. We had like a hook on it. So, and then we thought a lot of one time, used all the materials and built the latch up and put on the platform. So, bunch across the head for that.
Gonna give us a show here? Yeah. No pressure, you know.
No pressure.
You're on TV.
Why don't you explain what the actual competition was?
So
we got up there.
We got up there, we weren't gonna know what length they said the net time is anywhere from 15 to 25 feet. And so we got there and it was somewhere in this distance right here. So we got in there and it took us probably about 30 seconds to get our catapult zeroed in to the distance. And then during the 1 minute competition, we shot and we got 14 into the yellow. And then 6
Awesome.
And then during the 5-minute warm-up period, we were done in 30 seconds, and everybody else was kind of standing there watching us. We were done, and we didn't want to like keep shooting it because screwed up something. But we kept shot like 3 balls, and they were all in the photograph.
Nice
Nice.
shot. Nice shot. All right, nice shot. Did you do it from the same distance every time? They didn't move it back or anything like that to mess with you?
No.
Okay.
So what did you modify in the design as you went forward? Because I see some, like the 2 pieces in the middle on the bottom that don't meet each other.
Right.
That's kind of a unique feature. Is that designed that way, or did you run out of PVC?
So originally, after we won like the best in the class or whatever, we made it bigger to fit a sandbag, and we just happened to have those glued in already, so we just left them. The sandbag just sits over that.
Oh.
Hold it down. But we went to state with a bungee cord instead of the spring, and since the bungee cord, like if they're knotted on, the knots stretch and don't stretch sometimes, so it's inconsistent the height. And then so we changed that out for a spring, and then the latch. That's kind of why we were able to shoot like 3 balls a second, or no, 1 ball every 3 seconds, 2 balls a second.
Let's do a few more.
So how is your wood attached to your PVC down there?
There's a couple of clamps screwed in at the bottom.
Were there any minimum, I don't know how you call it, any standards that you had to follow or anything like that? Could it have been any size or any height or anything like that?
They actually had to fit in a certain height.
Really? So they were, okay.
It had to be a certain weight. I think the dimensions were 2 foot by 18 by 18.
18, okay.
Yeah, and it had to come in at 12 pounds, was it?
Nice.
Close enough.
So did a lot of the designs look a lot like yours, or were they completely different?
Going into it, I was expecting a lot of them to look similar, but most of them were really different. Yeah.
So what did you learn, gentlemen?
Pretty much that engineering is what I should be doing.
Good.
That's
That's
good.
great.
Good shot. That's good.
Why?
Because, I mean, we won, and I enjoy this, and so it's Dylan.
Now, you guys really won with your portfolio too, though, right? What does that consist of, the portfolio?
It's pretty much the design process and going through the design process with the catapult, and explaining what we did and how we came up with stuff.
Okay. That explains what you, the steps along the way to get to where you're at right there.
So we had to put like the materials we used in the catapult, and then like why we were inspired to do this and how we came up with it. And then we had to start doing a daily log of what we did each day. I put it in here and make sure that was very detailed and that we got every day in there.
And you present it to the judges and they look it over. You didn't have to do an oral presentation or anything, did you? It's pretty cool. Now, is this a class, Project Lead the Way class, or?
Yeah.
It is? So you have the class, but you also have after school time to do things?
Yes, we had robotics club that we came in once a week to verify and all consistency and shot.
Robotics club meets at your school once a week? Okay, okay. That's pretty cool.
You already did.
Butler Tech, guys, just let you know.
These two gentlemen are also going to be representing the district at Capitol Conference in November.
Oh, great.
So we're excited that we have students there. So glad you guys are coming.
Good job,
Thanks
guys.
for making that happen.
Are they part of the Student Achievement Fair or part of the presentations?
Student
Very
Achievement
good.
Fair. Yeah.
Great.
It's great. It's good to see you.
National chains.
Nice.
They were at the Butler Tech All Boards meeting as well.
Yeah.
They represented us there, and then they did a very nice job there as well.
Very good.
Any other questions? Gentlemen, stay up here. We're going to come around, give you some stuff, and let everybody take pictures because.
That's what your paparazzi's here for.
Yeah.
We like to take credit for you guys. That's where we stand here with our pictures. Yeah.
I think their teachers should have the opportunity to come up.
Does this have a prize place on the mantle, or do you switch it back and forth between houses now?
Go, Andrew. And Dylan. And you both get wear Lakota t-shirts. There you go.
Or your teachers can go, wait, how did you get me?
You squeeze in there, I'll squeeze in over here. Don't worry, you know it's Thank you, sir. Great job. Thank you, sir. Great job. It looks like it's designed that. Who knows? Maybe it was a balance thing, or. Okay, let's go into public comment. Do we have anybody up there who is interested in speaking to the board? Seeing nobody. Okay, we'll move on to board reports. We'll start with policy committee.
Oh, no, that's us. We have, or do you want, you
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. All you.
No, just one that from the edition that we had in September to rescind 51102, but it's really just a cleanup item that we had, and also an educational opportunity for military children as well. That was it. And Mr. Vogelman handled that as he always does.
They're discussing some changes and some different guidelines to clean some things up as well.
Yep.
So that's the only
That's
excitement
it.
in the world of policy and guidelines these
Correct.
days. So relatively quiet on that western front.
We should be due for a big packet soon.
Yeah, some excitement's coming. We're just saving up.
Big smile on face back there. Yay. Okay. Butler Tech. Okay, what have you?
Well, we were all at the all boards meeting, so we had a chance to see a lot of the cool things going on at Butler Tech. And of course, we saw Dylan and Andrew there, and they put on some great shows. It was a wonderful time. Just on the horizon, to let you know, Butler Tech is starting out to try to do a new strand in engineering, and it'll be the aerospace engineering. I can let you know how that, yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of interest in it. They're looking at renting some space over at Butler County Airport. And I think it'll be something, you know, I don't want to give too much away because it's kind of like in flux right now. But Matt King, who was a student here at one time, will be on staff with them and help them with that. He's done a lot in the drone technology. In fact, I was over at the Lakota West Coleraine game, and they delivered the football by a drone that flew in and dropped the ball off. So there's a lot of cool things going on as far as aerospace engineering. They want to try to build that out. And that's all I can tell you right now. I'll let you know as it goes. So that's it, my friend.
Thank you. We'll move on to community engagement.
There are several community conversations coming up between now and the next board meeting. 3 of them this week. October 25th, there's one at the central office. October 26th, there's a Hopewell junior staff and Union elementary staff. The 6th of November, Cherokee elementary staff, and Creekside will be November 8th.
So the one Wednesday is the student anxiety and
stresses.
So that is at 6:30. So that's the first one that's really of broader community interest. So we hope to get a good audience at that. We didn't ask for an RSVP, so we don't really know how many people will be attending, but we're pleasing that there seems to be a good amount of interest in that. So we're hoping for a good attendance at that one. That's certainly been a hot topic amongst people, and it's gotten some national press as well recently and some articles, so we think that that'll be well attended and timely.
Mr. Dibble, I have a question. So under Board Policy Committee, do we need to take action on that? Because I'm seeing a firm action taken regarding 5200 for emergency adoption and rescind current 5111.02 and update. So do we need to take action?
Nope.
Okay.
Action. It's just since we always do 2 reads.
And that was emergency, the first one.
This is the second time you see it. We've never done it before, but Norm was pretty adamant that since we were rescinding it, it had to show up twice somewhere. So
Okay.
it's new for us to
Just making sure.
Yeah, I saw the
Thanks.
information and didn't read further than that. So,
I'm
good.
just-
Thank you,
just
Jenny,
making
for
sure.
pointing that out. Any questions on community engagement? Opportunities? DPC, District Parent Council.
Meet again in November.
And legislative?
Let me take a moment to introduce, I noticed that former State Senator Gary Cates, who's now the Vice President of Higher Education, Vice Chancellor, I'm sorry, of Higher Education, is with us this evening. Wanted to welcome you. Jenny, any reports?
Nothing right now. I'm still waiting to see the new report from the state of Ohio on exactly what our financial foundation will look like from the state. It's still based on estimates. We should see that at the end of this month. So that will be interesting to see how that all pans out. But as far as legislative things right now, it's kind of quiet.
The only one that I'm seeing that's really hot and heavy right now is Matt Hoffman's bill on deregulation. Matt's in the Lima area, and so that's one we're keeping our eye on, but one that I think something will happen with. So more info when we get it.
It hasn't left the House, though.
Not yet.
Okay. That's it for now.
Okay. I had to Google you to figure out what your title was nowadays. Senior Vice Chancellor. Very cool. And he's also Division of Innovation and Enterprise Development. So even cooler. Thank you for being here, Gary. Treasurer's recommendations. Jenny, I know we have a 5-year forecast on here.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that now?
I would, with Todd's help. Okay. So it's time again to discuss the 5-year forecast, the purpose of which is to provide a little bit of history, 3 years worth of history, as well as a 5-year forecast, which includes the current year plus 4 more. So the last time we talked about the 5-year forecast, it went through fiscal year 21. Now we're talking about fiscal year 22, which seems like a long way away, but it's really not. This provides us some long-range planning. It is a snapshot financial report. I cannot stress that enough. This is based on assumptions that we know today. And there are a whole lot of things we don't know about fiscal year 19, fiscal year 20, 21, and 22. So we're making assumptions based on the information we have now. And it's a legal requirement. So every October and every May, we must file a 5-year forecast. The challenges to this year's October filing, I mentioned, Linda, that we're still waiting to see what our foundation looks like from the state. Our state foundation, which is the dollars that we get directly from by way of Ohio Department of Education, is 29% of our total revenues. All state sources are 35%, which includes homestead and rollback. When it's 29% of our total revenues, we still need to be concerned about that revenue item. For fiscal year 18, based on our predictions, we will still be a foundation, a formula district. In 19, next year, we're predicting we will go back on the guarantee. That is critical for us because based on what happened in this last state biennium budget, they started making cuts to the guarantee districts. It's based on, right now, if your enrollment decreased more than 5% over the past 3 years. Ours did not. If you look back over 5 years, it did. The first look at the budget looked at a 5-year look back, which would have been detrimental to us. We would have started seeing cuts to our foundation. We have 2 more biennium budgets included in this forecast. So what will happen in the future biennium budgets, we need to be aware of and be advocating on behalf of our district, because if we look like we're going to stay as a guarantee status for a period of time, we don't want those cuts to start sinking in. The other piece that makes it difficult for this forecast is both of our agreements, our master agreements with the LEA and LSSA, expire at the end of this year. So beyond fiscal year 18, we're making assumptions on salaries and benefits that will be negotiated in the near future. And that impacts our 2 biggest expenditure line items.
The last contract was 2 years?
Our LSSA was a 4-year and LEA was a 3-year.
3 years.
Mm-hmm. Seems like it was just yesterday, doesn't it? I know. Notable revenue assumptions. Our tax revenue is stable and recovering, which is great to say after the recession. We are right now going through a triennial update. The estimate for Butler County as a county is 7% on residential and agricultural values. But we know that's countywide, so Lakota will look different than that. And I just don't know what those numbers are yet. We should be getting them in the next month or so. Again, predicting that we'll return to the guarantee funding status in FY19. The impact of the Westchester TIF compensation revisions are included in this forecast. So when you look at the revenue and how it's going to increase slightly, that's mainly because of that. And then I put this on here. I know we've talked about it a lot, but after this fiscal year, we will no longer receive a dime in tangible personal property tax reimbursement. That totally goes away for us at the end of this year. And That was, a few years ago, $3.15 million annually for our district, which is about 1.2 mils. So when you look at our revenue trends, I went back all the way to 2013, just because that's when we passed our last levy. So what does our revenue look like from that period of time through the forecasted period? So you're going to see those, you know, the big jumps here. Well, that's because that's when we started collecting on the levy. And then you're going to see some increases here. This was actual in 2017. And here's 2019, 20, 21. There's slight increases here, but those are mostly because of the Westchester TIF adjustments. Moving on to the expenditures assumptions, we are assuming a 2.5% increase in wages for 18 through 22. Again, both contracts will be negotiated, so these are assumptions. In FY17, we had an overall increase in wages of 2.6%, but in FY16 it was 0.9%. We had less retirements than we expected last year, so we saw a bit of a jump. We're keeping it at 2.5%, but again, as time goes on and we see who's going to be retiring and we get those numbers, we'll be able to adjust that as well as negotiation. Healthcare premium increases are estimated at 7.5% and dental at 5%. But for January 2018, we were able to negotiate a 3.5% increase in healthcare and a 2% increase in dental. I want to say this was critical. When you looked at our experience and what had happened with our healthcare this past year, we had a rate cap with Anthem at 4.5%. That saved this district a lot of money. If you would have looked at what they should have given us in a rate percentage increase, it was somewhere around 20%. Yeah. So we've got some work to do on some changes that we need to start thinking about in how we look at healthcare and dental, and we've already met as a healthcare committee, and it's starting to work on what does that look like in the future and how do we try to do what we can to make changes so that we're not going to see those increases, because that's just not board share, that's employee share too. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we're mindful of that. The other thing I want to say about the expenditure assumptions is no new programs or changes to existing operations are included in this forecast. So this is basically assuming status quo. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And here are the expenditure trends and assumptions. So you can see that, and Ray and I were just kind of reflecting upon, he said, how much did we cut out of our budget, Jenny, back when we were during cuts? $20 million. We cut $20 million. And it wasn't just a cut from future budgets, if you recall. Our bottom line reduced by $20 million. Then we passed the levy in 2013, but we didn't pass it and increase our expenditures by $20 million. Because if you look all the way back to 2010, we're still millions of dollars underspending what we spent in 2010, and we're not predicting to get up to that point until, well, not even as far out as this forecast goes. So we are not outpacing. If you look all the way back, so 12 years in 2022, we're still not predicting we're going to spend as much as we spent in 2010.
It's amazing. And back then, the over and under was unbelievable. We were upside down with our spending.
We were we were spending more than we were bringing in, which is another piece. So now, if you look at our revenues, expenditures, and cash balance, you always want your blue line to be higher than your red line. You don't want your expenditures to be outpacing your revenues. We have gone 5 years consistently, consecutively with a balanced budget. This forecast predicts that we will continue that through 2022 with a balanced budget, and our cash balance will grow. And this is just the snapshot. If you look at the 5-year forecast, there are a lot of line items. And so what I tried to do here is just do the snapshot to show what's beginning cash, total revenues, total expenditures, ending cash. In summary, I just stated again, 5 consecutive years of a balanced budget. We're predicting that we will go all the way through 2022 as a balanced budget. Again, we have unknowns. We have 2 additional state biennium budgets included in this forecast. I've said it again, negotiated agreements. We also, it's time to start talking about our district's strategic plan. Where the heck do we want to be in the future? What does 2022 look like for Lakota? Status quo? I think not. I mean, I'm going to go to Keith's presentation. Nothing about this district says that we want to stay status quo. But we've done a whole lot of work to gain back credibility in this community. And so now what we have to look at is where do we want to take this district in the future while making sure that we have the resources to do what we need to do, repurposing things as we can. But we're at a different place now, and it's a good place to be. So, questions? Matt, do you have anything?
No, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier today about it, and I think we're in really good footing. I mean, you bring up a good point about the status quo issue. So to talk about how that's going to change in the coming years, but this is the 3rd district I've been a superintendent of in terms of a 5-year forecast, and this is the best I've seen. So that's very encouraging.
I am a bit concerned about seeing our expense track trending upward like that, as we've discussed before, but it's about reallocation as opposed to putting new dollars toward things. And I think that's the discussion we're just beginning about strategic planning. What's leaving, what's staying, what's being enhanced.
But at some point, we have to start talking about the future, though. I mean, we've been cutting and holding back, but at some point, we have to start talking about investing in our people. I know I can run a business all the time. I've run businesses before, and I have had a nice cash balance, and the building's been ready to fall down. You just can't do that, you know. I mean, at some point, you got to start investing in making your product better, and better, because that everybody around us is doing the same thing. So, but that's something we need to talk about down the road. I like what you said about, and I don't like it, but for so many years we were just the over and under, which we used to look at all the time, was just out of balance. We were spending so much more than we were taking in, and that was years and years. And as far back as I look past 2010 from my notes, and we had done it the first year that I was there. So you're talking 8 years before we got on.
Right.
Just more than we ever brought in. We were spending. And that spend down was taken away from my cash balance every year. Very good. Very good.
It's a good place to be.
That you've extended, that we've been able to extend to positive balance.
Yes. Yes. It's nice that to look at the forecast and to not see a negative on line 6010,
Right.
which is whether you have an operating surplus or deficit, because for so long we triggered in on that line item, and that was where we said we have to change this. We have to change this, and we have.
Right.
You all have. I mean,
It's taken a lot of
been
work.
Yep.
Any other questions? Great job, Jenny.
Real good.
It is very nice to see good numbers on there. And certainly, there is the opportunity to take some of that money and invest it to, invest it, not spend it.
Right.
Right.
Invest.
That is a
Invest it.
distinction. Because we certainly can build places where we can build efficiencies because we have the capital to be able to put the roof on the building.
Yes.
And not have to pump it out every day.
Yeah.
So, there are opportunities to move forward that we did not have 8 years ago, and it's nice to see.
Yes.
Nice to see those numbers, so thank you.
Remember 8 years ago, some of the meetings that we had, Ben?
Yeah.
Going, and then we shared some of the fun with Julie when she came on too.
6 years ago.
She said, "What did I get into?"
Got it.
Okay, well, we'll actually pull that one out separately. Do you have anything on the financial reports? Anything new and different on there?
Nope,
No,
nothing new or different.
Okay, let's take Treasurer's Recommendations A, which is approval of the board minutes from September 25th, and the approval of the September 2017 financial reports by themselves. Do I have a motion for Treasurer's Recommendations A and B?
So moved.
Second.
Linda, thank you, Ray. Any discussion on either of those? Hearing none. Jenny, will you call the roll?
Mrs. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Mr. Parnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Dibble.
Yes.
Thank
Do I
you.
have a motion for Treasurer's item number C, and C, approval of 5-year forecast?
So moved. Second that.
Julie and Ray. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. Jenny, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Parnell.
Yes.
Mr. Dibble.
Yes. Thank you. We'll move on to Superintendent's Recommendations. We have 3 on here. Approval of personnel items. We have 2 field trips. One going to Washington, D.C. The other is Camp Kern, and donations. Do you have anything that's shatteringly news out of those?
I don't.
Okay. Do I have a motion for Superintendent's items A, B, and C?
So moved.
Second.
Linda and Ray, thank you.
It's hard to see Bob Fisher go after all these years of
I know.
being such an important part of our staff.
Yes. Any discussion? None? Jenny, will you call a roll?
Mrs. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Mr. Parnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Dibble.
Yes. We'll move on to closing comments. I'll start at your end, Ray.
None really to report. It just want to thank you guys for putting together such a great schedule for community conversations. I actually look forward to those, and we've gotten so much good feedback. And I went back into some of the buildings, and they come up and talk to me and thanked us for coming over, and it's just a lot of enthusiasm. So thank you, ladies, for building that out the way you did.
Jenny.
It's great to be honored by national winners, and to see their catapult working. I saw a bullseye there, so that's always good when it works. And it highlights the partnership with Butler Tech. And we have quite a few partnerships. I talked about the partnership with Westchester and, with the revenue, with those TIFs. We have great relationship with Liberty Township. I mean, there's just a lot of those relationships that we see every day, and we see great things come up. So it's always great to see the students here and positive results. And then we'll get to see them again at Capital Conference and brag on them. So that'll be good. So,
They were thinking they couldn't use their catapult in Columbus. I said, oh yeah, you can. We'll do it across the aisle.
That's right.
See how
Great
many board
idea.
members-
Yeah. Yeah.
Drum up interest.
It's like trying to avoid the lawn sprinkler.
Todd?
I want to echo what Ray said about the community conversations. They've been very good. I'm looking forward to the one on Wednesday. I think that's going to be an excellent one. And that is at 6:30, and it's right here. Okay. And then the 5-year forecast, every October, I'm always impressed, and now even more impressed. So thank you, Jenny, for everything you do.
Yeah.
No, it's a team
It
effort.
wouldn't be this without you. So I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
That's all.
Julie?
Ditto. As Ray said, when I joined the board, it was bleak times. My first meetings were the $20 million cuts. So I think I probably had the greatest contrast of seeing where we've been and where we're going to, because I started probably at the low low points.
I would disagree.
Yeah.
Disagree.
All right. So it's certainly nice to see where we have come, and I think we all take that responsibility very seriously, and appreciate the investment the community made, and take that to heart, and want to use every one of those dollars very judiciously. And I appreciate the entire team effort in getting us there. And look forward to continuing in that effort, at the same time enhancing what we can do for our students and our staff to make sure that the students have the opportunities, and we can compete at a high level with the surrounding districts, and do what we need to do to make everybody prepared for their future. So thank you, and I look forward to continuing to invest in everyone in this district.
Linda?
So I have to disagree, Julie. But when I first came on the board, we were in contentious labor negotiations with our staff marching across the field. That was difficult. And I've been looking back at numbers over my decade on the board, and we actually went up to $190 million in expenditures at one point, and then had to start dropping it back down. And when I look at those numbers, I just shake my head. I'm so glad we've changed the culture and our mindset about our spending, and how we need to be fiscally responsible. It's been a long ride in some respects. I really appreciate the quality profile. I think that gives such a more in-depth picture to our community, more than just the report card.
You're stealing my thunder.
I'm sorry.
But that's
I'm not
okay.
going to bring that up, but I really like it. Okay?
Keep going. No, it's okay.
No, I think this is really an important part of telling the whole story.
Right.
And so thank you for putting that together. Jenny, I'm just delighted with this news. This is terrific news to see tonight. And look forward to seeing where the next biennium budget takes it.
Yeah.
Always a roller coaster, but I know that everybody will be very diligent about what to expect there. As we've been the last go-round, when I look at this, and we know how swiftly it can change. We were supposed to be the biggest loser in the state at $10 million. But through our community's advocacy and through our legislative advocacy, we dropped it to $3 million, which was something we didn't knock us to our knees this time, and it could have. It would have in the past. So I think those kind of examples really say how far we've come, which is great news. Now I'll turn the thunder over to Matt.
No, just real quick before I get to the quality profile, and I know I can't mention them all here or I'll forget some, but I'm just really impressed with not only like what Andrew and Dylan were doing, but how many of our teams and clubs and marching bands are excelling after the regular season. It's great to watch and see all the excitement around what our kids are doing. So kudos to them, but kudos also to our coaches and teachers and support staff and their parents that are pushing all of that out. It's just fun to see how much is going on, not just inside of the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. But just real quick on the quality profile report, you could have kept going. But this was obviously a group effort, and it's our first one. So you'll see, I think, an evolution of these as we go year to year moving forward as a complement to what else is important besides test scores and report cards. And certainly those are important, but there are other things that are equally, in my opinion, equally important. So these should get mailed out here in a couple of days. But we have some here. I can get some to you, too, if you need some more.
I'm going to ask a question, if I can, Ben. Will our measurements, unlike our state report cards, will our measurements stay the same kind of things?
I think we'll evolve. I mean, we could keep it like this, but I think in time, I think maybe we'll look at things differently. We want to do some surveys and get some more input from our community and from our kids. I think that might add another wrinkle to it, but I think for the most part, it'll look a lot like that. I think in the future, there'll probably be more detail.
No, I think that's great, but in the specific areas, I think for a year over year, for people to see
Yeah,
the
would
growth
be
in the
good.
district would be good to, some
Have something to
continuity.
measure. Yep.
Yeah,
That plus.
absolutely.
That's it. Yep.
Okay. First, I thought it was a great presentation on professional development. It's always kind of a challenge in any industry to come up with professional development that really engages your team members. And I think from the feedback I've seen on Twitter from people, as well as what you highlighted there, it's just great to see people getting training that they think is useful, that they are enjoying, that their peers are presenting, and people are being thrilled with the presentations that their peers are giving, which is win-win written all over it, which I love. So great job with that. Let's keep that moving. 5-year forecast. It is way better place to be now. To look at them and figure out how many more $1 million you have to cut out of the budget to be even remotely in the right place is horrible. But one of the things you mentioned in there was healthcare might go up, and you already have the healthcare committee looking at that, and that's the reason that we're in the place we are. Not because we made lots of cuts, but because we're being proactive about planning this and looking ahead and looking in the crystal ball and seeing what's going to come down the pike and being able to plan around that. And when you have a plan to attack the problems, it's way better. So that's great. And I love did they mean to leave their launcher here?
I don't know.
I don't know what I'm going to do tonight.
That's going to be in his living room. Well, they left the launcher for the board to play with later, but it's fun to have, automation and robotics was the class, I think, which, how different was that from when we all were in school? Nothing interesting like that. And I looked at our vision of instilling pride, igniting passion, and infinite possibilities. Obviously, those two, this hit a spot with them that they could really engage in and learn and grow, and they improved it, and they tweaked it, and they got to be recognized for it. We're proud of it, and just.
And then, I know this is your time to talk, but I'm going to jump in because that's what I do. But the one boy, when you ask the question, young man, I guess, when you ask the question, what is this going to do for you? I want to be an engineer.
Yeah.
He went right into that, and he knew that's what he was going to do. And he's a ninth grader.
Right
They
there.
both talked about that at dinner, and that they both want to follow the series of the Butler Tech classes, and they were both talking about that with us at dinner.
That's the kind of stuff we need to embrace. I'm not saying we don't. I'm just saying that those kinds of things that get kids thinking about what they're going to do after they get their diplomas, what we should be doing.
And when I ask him the question of what did you learn, to have him say that, so no hesitation was amazing.
He knew his stuff.
Yeah,
They
very
both
much
did.
so.
So it's great to see our vision kind of playing out right in front of us with great teachers giving opportunities for kids to grow and learn and expand their skill sets and experience new things and turn out to be great contributing people to society. So that was wonderful. So with that, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Linda.
Second that.
Thank you, Ray. Jenny, will you call the roll?
Mrs. O'Connor? Yes. Mr. Murray? Yes. Mr. Parnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. DeBall?
Yes, thank you very much, everyone, for coming.